Hello, and welcome to Smeg and the Femmes, a podcast to discuss Red Dwarf from a different perspective. I'm Janamali, and today I'll be talking about Series 1, Episode 6, Me2, with the help of my guest, Aubergine Purple. Hi again, Aubergine.
Hello.
Hello. Right, okay, so let's dive straight into this rather juicy episode. Basically, in this episode, Rimmer and Lister are exactly like a couple who've broken up.
Yes.
It's not even subtext. I mean, Lister literally, sort of refers to himself as a bachelor. And he's delighted that he can have his own room. And of course, this is where we get into the, well, he could have had his own room the whole time. I mean, what's stopping him?
Yeah, that's interestingly enough, that is one thing that I've never caught like an actual explanation that made any sense on why they continue to share a room.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I realise, that out of universe, the explanation is because they want them all. They want them all in the same set for comedy purposes. But an in-universe explanation, the best one I've ever heard is, for companionship, And the thing is, I completely get the companionship argument, but if I was in that situation, even in that desperate situation, with somebody who wasn't my partner or a relative or whatever, we would still have separate rooms,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe adjoining rooms, for comfort and stuff, but still separate bedrooms, I mean, and maybe a communal socialization kind of area, I mean, it's just. I guess you can say, the characters are sort of clinging to it, as a sort of remnant of the life they knew, but I mean, obviously, those of us, who sort of ship Rimmer and Lister, we prefer the explanation, the slashy explanation, it makes more sense.
It does. And the book, Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers, kind of implies that it is the companionship because Rimmer is actually turned off after Lister is been out of stasis for a couple of weeks. The reason Rimmer is turned on in the first place is because Lister's drinking himself to death. Essentially,
yeah.
He's just sleeping wherever, he's eating whatever, he's not taking care of himself, and that's when Holly goes, okay, I need to do something. And he's still kind of, the book, it feels like the same excuse of, oh, I did a thing and I picked Rimmer. But it probably does come down to Rimmer's the only one who's going to challenge you.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I do kind of get why they brought Rimmer back because, as we discussed, sort of, as I discussed sort of earlier in my podcasts, I mean, he is actually the best candidate because Lister probably wouldn't have taken much notice of random sort of officers that he didn't know very well, and Kochanski was obviously not a good option, and his friends would just sort of encourage his drinking, and made him worse, so he kind of does need Rimmer to sort of piss him off, basically.
Yeah. And that after Rimmer getting turned on, or in this case, Rimmer being on from the get, it makes sense to keep some level of normalcy from pre-accident, and that includes sharing a room.
It does, yeah. I mean, I do understand it to a certain extent from a psychological viewpoint. But I mean, it is also kind of a relief, when in series 3 they move to officers' quarters. It's obviously finally dawned. Hold on, we don't need to be in that grotty old bunk room any longer. We can have any room on the ship.
Yeah, which is part of a good explanation why the bedroom set keeps changing. All you have to do is explain they moved to a new bedroom. That's it.
Yeah, it does completely make sense, that on a vast empty ship that they would move from room to room, and if they got bored, it's completely understandable.
Yep.
Yeah, but the fact they still, sort of move together as opposed to moving separately is kind of, well, eyebrow-raising, basically. The two rivers. It's interesting that Lister is quite obviously jealous of the second rimmer. He keeps saying things like, "So how's Mrs. Rimmer? Where's your wife?" etc.
Oh
etc.
god, the jealousy. Like the episode just starts off with the jealousy. It's so great, and you just kind of want to ask Lister, like, are you sure you're okay?
Yeah, it's interesting, because it's usually Rimmer comparing Lister to a woman, but here Lister is comparing a version of Rimmer to a woman, which is something he doesn't do as often, But it's psychologically interesting, because I think I know what it's basically, I think it's unconscious jealousy.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. There's and to see Lister be the one that's jealous is also interesting because that's the kind of thing we don't see from him very often throughout the series.
It's
And
true. It's much more
the first
often
time we
Rimmer.
see it, it's about Rimmer.
Yeah, that is interesting. It is much more often Rimmer who is blindingly obviously jealous of Kochansky or various other people. So yeah,
For
it is.
various reasons.
Sorry,
For various reasons. The
for
reasons,
various
sometimes
reasons.
he's jealous, like Todd Hunter, because he's an officer. Kachansky, because, well,
Because of
you
the
could have the
romantic
slashy
thing.
reason
Yeah,
in being jealous because, Lister has feelings for her.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many people Rimmer is jealous of. Pretty much everyone, to be honest. Yeah. Let me see.
the, the thing I found interesting with this second Rimmer is that we're given a hand waved explanation for how suddenly Red Dwarf can handle two holograms.
Mhm.
Whereas the first book, they find Crichton before we meet him in the series, and his ship they bring on board, and is how the second Rimmer is sustained.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah,
And of
yeah,
course, during most of the time, I mean, then the plot kind of goes a different way um, for a lot of that up to the rest of what's covered in this episode. But um, they still, even in the book, eventually hate each other, snapping at each other. Like that doesn't change.
yeah. Basically, in the book, it just gets even worse because Lister and Cat are away mining, and the two
For
Rimmers, and
3 months.
they, the two Rimmers end up destroying half the scuttles.
Yep. Yep.
Oh yeah,
And then
so
there's
basically,
just one left, barely holding on.
oh, feebly holding something in its claw or whatever you call their hands. Oh, it's such a cute, poignant image.
Yeah.
So yeah, the two rivers. Obviously they're comedy gold.
Oh yeah. It
Yeah.
also what's nice is it shows that even over the short course of just this first series,
Hmm.
Rimmer has changed. He has loosened up a bit from the stranglehold of expectations that he believed he had to live under. Um,
Yeah,
particularly,
yeah.
based off of his family's baggage, and the copy of him calls that out often.
Yeah, in the book he actually says, "You've changed. Lister's changed you." That's so interesting. That
Yeah.
even Rob and Doug, notice that. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I basically, okay. To be fair, I don't think a lot of people will get on with an exact copy of themselves. But
Oh God, no.
especially the two women. They're absolutely terrible for each other. They
They're
make you feel
terrible for themselves. They're terrible for other people.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, of course we do see. I don't know whether you've seen the unmade series one episode Body Snatcher, where we do briefly get to two listers, and they end up driving each other mad as well.
Yes, which at least is turnabout is fair play in that instance.
Yeah, but of
But it
course,
also proves, Lister isn't as easy to get along with any more than Rimmer is.
yeah, that is interesting. Obviously, I understand why they had to drop it because it was too similar to Me Squared, and
It
Me Squared
was,
was
yeah.
better. Yeah, yeah, Me Squared actually. Interestingly, it was filmed, after a while after the rest of it had been filmed, and they'd had more opportunity to observe the actors and write to their particular strengths. So that's why Me Squared, it's a stronger episode than some of the other series one episodes.
Yeah.
For instance, they deliberately decided to write in Danny's roller skating skills.
Yeah,
That's a,
it was nice seeing the cat doing something more than dancing around, and slipping and sliding. Um, it was a lot smoother with him on the roller skates.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It did occur to me that his absolute conviction, that there are lady cats on board, it is a bit more understandable at this stage of the show, considering there was another live cat on board just 2 episodes ago. It's a bit more understandable.
And the understandability also comes into the fact that he's now discovered monkeys. So shouldn't that mean that he just hasn't found the other lady cats?
It
Like he'd
should
not found these
really.
monkeys until he stumbled upon them. So obviously he's just not found them yet. That's
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
actually consistent logic with the real world. So
Mhm.
that makes sense. One thing that is noticeable, and it's only shown for a short time, obviously, but this is the true introduction of the cat belt buckle.
Oh, of course. The one that actually says cat. Yes.
Yep. Granted, it doesn't come back until what, like series 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But this is the introduction, and I noticed that in this rewatch. It's the first time I ever noticed that.
No, yeah, I must admit, I hadn't noticed that it's introduced as earlier series. Well, I do associate it with series 6. Well spotted. Right. Okay. I did also want to talk about Rimmer's Death Day video because
Oh God, it's fitting that Rimmer would have this long diatribe before the actual footage of his death.
of course he would.
If it
The way
wasn't
this
there,
was
you'd
moved
have to be like,
afterwards.
did he just get this from Holly and not alter it? That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it is very, very, very remote, to want a video of his death, and to do a tribute to him. It is entirely remote. But I have to say, then when you actually see it, and Hollister's brief appearance, and then very, very quickly Hollister's death and Rimmer's death. It is pretty grim.
It is very grim, and it's also something that obviously the fandom has focused on the absolute illogical aspect of why would Rimmer, who at this point should be basically at the bottom rung of the ship, be entrusted with repairing something as important as the drive plates.
Yeah, that is it is a major logic flaw, continuity logic flaw, whatever. I have never read an explanation for it which actually makes sense. I
The
really
only
haven't.
the only explanation is that he was legitimately being set up to fail, and
Yeah,
that failure killed everybody.
yeah, I have read a few fan fictions that do actually, work on that premise. That he was actually literally being set up to fail by malicious persons. That does kind of makes sense, I guess. I have also wondered whether whether with the retcon in series 8 of Hollister as a lot less competent than he seemed in series 1, whether it could have been a mess up on Hollister's part. But I mean, that depends whether you accept series 8 Hollister as canon or not, I guess.
Yeah. Well, of course, and then there is also the uh, difference in his death in the book. You know, if literally in the book, if he'd only spent a few less minutes um, contemplating
Yeah.
something else, he would have been in a stasis booth at the same time as Lister, and they both
Yeah.
would be alive. But he wasn't, and the drive plate failure had nothing to do with repairs. It just failed.
It just failed. Yeah, I mean, I think Robin Hood put that in to make his death even more sort of, oh my god, agonising. Get him down to stasis booth, you idiot. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the series has kept the death we see in this episode as canon for it, as opposed to referencing the book's differences. So
Yeah, I mean, I think the novels are intended to be viewed as sort of alternate canon. I mean, that's the way I've seen them referred to. I mean, not necessarily by Robin Duck. I mean, it's supposed to. I mean, the idea is supposed to, it'd be that Robin Duck offering sort of an expanded, improved version, or if you prefer an alternative version. Because, yeah. I mean, I guess you can view it as you like. But I mean, obviously they do not fit with TV canon in a lot of ways. So they're basically
right,
sort of separate canon, and I best guess it's basically up to us, what we accept from the novels as canon and what we say, no, that's not canon.
right. Of course, Me2 is one episode which is there are scenes that are verbatim in the books to how they are in the episode.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of odd because I mean, having read the books, episodes like Me Squared and Crichton, there are there's sort of huge chunks, in the books. I mean, and obviously, since Robin Dove wrote them, they are completely entitled to lift these chunks and novelize them, But it kind of, when you're watching them for purposes, watching the episodes for purposes of review, you keep thinking, now was that part in the novel, or was that part in the episode? They kind of
Right.
them together a bit. Oh yeah. One thing I did want to mention also, regarding two Rimmers is, of course, just as at the end, when the first Rimmer is coming in and he thinks he's going to be deleted, and the second Rimmer leaves and calls him "You Great Nancy." It's just such a perfect moment of Rimmer's self-loathing. I mean, I don't know how well known the term Nazi is, but it's a British term for a gay man, basically.
Oh yeah, we've had it. It's used to be used in the U.S., but it's been kind of phased out for other words.
Yeah, I mean, we don't use it much. Well, I mean, I wouldn't use it anyway because obviously it is basically a slur, or
Right.
it's not a it's not the worst one, it's kind of sort of moderate, but yeah, I mean,
Well, a term you guys use for cigarettes, for slang over there, is the term that replaced Nancy over here.
of course, yeah, yes, that one. Yes, it's yeah. I mean, when I've been around, people who speak English, but are not, are not from the UK, it's led to some interesting misunderstandings.
It
Well,
was
basically,
it surprised a bunch of people when the a later episode that actually uses that word aired in the US and they kept it the same.
oh yeah, what you mean? Sorry, you mean Red Dwarf used it in the sense of cigarette. You mean?
Yes.
Yeah, because I
It
mean,
was
I'm
one
I'm
of the
I'm
newer
pretty I'm pretty sure it's
episodes.
being used in the American sense in the show, because, well, that wouldn't really make sense because the characters aren't American. Hmm.
Correct. No, it was used in the British sense.
Hmm.
It was Officer Rimmer actually.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yes, of course, yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess hopefully they realised from the context that that cigarettes were being referred to. Well, hope so anyway.
The actual scene made it very clear that it was being used in the British
Well, good, yeah.
verbiage.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm struggling. I mean, obviously I have seen Officer Murmur, but I'm struggling to think of the scene in question. Do you happen to
They're
recall what?
talking about how and why Lister sold his DNA and genome to be in a database for
Oh, of
cloning.
course, you flogged your genome for a packet of fags. That yes.
And $20 pounds, I believe.
Oh
I
yes,
could be wrong on that, but it's like, barely nothing.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, not to get to. I mean, obviously we'll get to Officer Rimmer in due course, but I mean, as I've said, I mean before, that episode would have been, felt. It's a good episode, but it always feels as though it belongs in the sort of earlier series, and it happened far too late in the show, really. But
Right.
yeah.
Actually, I was also going to reference it in the fact that, with the advent of Me2, and we see that Rimmer has already started to have some character development in the fact that his, copy absolutely abhors how he's not the exact same, and, you've changed and all that. We get to the Dave era, and you get up to episodes like Officer Rimmer, and it's like that character development meant nothing. And
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
bit sad to see later seasons
Yeah.
checking back that character development.
Yeah, and it's kind of odd to be honest, because
Yeah,
the first three episodes of series 11, Rimmer is kind of part of the gang, and then he just takes this massive backstep in Officer Rimmer. Yeah,
that is, yeah.
I mean, I guess you can argue that that is realistic, that people do backslide in that fashion, But I think it's more, that Doug had this idea, and decided it was good enough to use, even though it didn't really fit Rimmer's character at this stage of the show. But well, I
As
mean,
opposed
obviously,
to, it would have been great earlier in the series, closer to this episode.
yeah, it would have made a lot more sense earlier in the show. But I mean, it's still an enjoyable episode, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. Mhm. So then, of course, we get to the sort of climax of the episode, where Lister sort of deviously tricks Rimmer into telling us about the gazpacho soup incident.
You know, I found it interesting. Rimmer comes in to get turned off and tricked into telling, what gazpacho soup day is.
Mhm.
And in the books, it's something Lister's been contemplating for years, because Rimmer will talk about it in his sleep.
Oh right.
Um, but he's got these service medals for different years in which he's reached service on Red Dwarf. And in the book, he says that he got invited after 5 months to the captain's table. But in the episode, he
It's
says
14
that
years.
it was 14 years of service, but it
Mhm.
obviously happened before Lister joined. And the series implies that Lister's been on the ship for at least 18 to 24 months at the point of the accident.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's really interesting to see, Rimmer believes that his advancement in career has everything to do with Gazpacho Soup Day, but it doesn't make as much sense in the show because that's only a couple of years as opposed to over 10 years in the book.
Yeah, yeah, it really does make sense to me. Of course, I mean, there are multiple reasons why Rimmer's career never went anywhere, and honestly, gazpacho
He's
soup.
mostly to blame for them.
Yeah, he is mostly debated alone. And honestly, I don't think gazpacho soup even registered on the radar. Oh, okay, so he doesn't know about gazpacho soup. That's not a big issue. It's not obligatory become an officer to know that
But
it's.
it's not like anyone who was sitting at that table remembers.
I'm pretty sure not. No, what, why would they? It's just such a minor thing. I mean, and I do get that that's in the book at least. That's supposed to be the idea, that people obsess about minor things, that nobody else remembers.
Except
But
for Rimmer.
yeah, I mean, it's just given what we see of Rimmer's pre-accident behaviour, I mean, for instance, in Stasis League, where he ends up kicking Hollister in the balls. I mean,
In the pilot, where after being told by Todd Hunter, "Oh, Rimmer, you are a smeghead," he's like, "This will end your career," and he's just screaming at him like, "Yeah, that's why you haven't advanced, man. That's why."
exactly, yeah. I mean, and also the way he behaves to Chansky in the disco flashback in Balance of Power. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I
but
mean,
then of
it's just
course there's his general outlook on life, and that he doesn't view his lack of advancement as more of his failure. He it's mentioned that when he became second technician, he didn't view it as his as a good
as a
thing. He
promotion, yeah.
mentioned it as a failure to become first technician. Like that kind of viewpoint, of course you're going to see any little thing you can as being, this is why I'm being held back.
Yeah, I mean, it is so very Rimmer, and of course, I mean, obviously he does get that outlook from his family. I mean, and I do sympathise because, as I've said before, his family was terrible. And obviously they are partly responsible for how he turned out, but only partly. I mean, at some stage
Right.
you do have to say, well, actually, Lister says it in this episode. I mean, at some stage, in the end, you can't turn around and say, "Sorry, I buggered my life up. It's all Lister's fault." You know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah. And this is also the first episode we have a true hint on how seriously bad his upbringing was. Because sometimes you'll meet people who have toxic views of um, women, other people, classes, all that. And it comes from people that they've known in their life as teens and adults. And then there are some people where it started from child rearing age and how your family treats you. And Rimmer's one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting because Rimmer, obviously, amongst the area of fandom that you and I tend to frequent, he is a very popular character, and I understand why, because he's very relatable. It's things like being bad at exams and getting panic attacks and stuff. They are obviously very easy to relate to. But there is of course also the fact that he is, I mean, especially at this stage of the show, a pretty unlikable character. I mean, you kind of you do sympathise with him, but I mean, you also think, oh God, you're terrible at the same time.
Yeah. He's, it's interesting that some of the most loved fandom characters tend to also be ones where their fandom would also be like, yeah, he'd be the first off the boat.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Rimmer. How do I put this? I mean, Rimmer's. I don't. Rimmer would not fare well on on Tumblr. I don't think, because he'd be that person, being all toxic masculinity kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's more for Twitter these days.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh god. I'm imagining Rimmer on Twitter and thinking what a complete nightmare. What a complete nightmare that would be. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, that'd be great. I
he'd have
said
a quite dramatic
sarcastically.
aneurysm, I think.
Yeah. There is something I did notice about that gazpacho soup reveal as well, is the cat is in the drive room at the same time. He
Mhm.
hears the same story,
Yeah.
but he also never brings it up after this.
Yeah. I mean, I
And for
mean,
everything we see about the cat and how much he hates Rimmer and how he brings things up about Rimmer, as you know, you'll notice going on in the series, the things that he mocks Rimmer for and everything, because Rimmer's just gonna become his favorite punching bag.
mhm.
The cat never brings up gazpacho soup.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say, well, he's a cat. He sort of, forgot about it as soon as it happened. But I mean, I prefer to think that he does remember it, and he has actually, for whatever reason, decided to honour it.
Whether
Yeah,
it be Lister strong arming him into it or the fact that he just thinks it's that pathetic of a thing to not bring up.
yeah. I
I
mean,
just found it really interesting, you know. I didn't notice Kat was in the room like the first couple of times I even watched the episode, but then one time going through the series, there he was, and I'm just like, oh my god, and he never brings it up. That
yeah. I mean, that
that kind
is
of seems out of character.
it does, doesn't it? I mean, I have wondered, whether Doug is sort of holding gazpacho soup, up his sleeve just in case he ever needs to use it, in some kind of really really dramatic, they Ramon Vista have a massive fight kind of way, But I mean, as it stands, Lister and Kat have actually been incredibly honourable. Never mention it again.
Yeah. There's a few things about Rimmer they never mention that happens, but I won't say what they are because you'll be going over them eventually.
That is true. Yes. Mhm. Right. So let me see. Oh yeah, it is interesting. Well, to me, as someone who likes the character of Todd Hunter, that Rimmer brings him up in his rant about not having the right knobby parents, etc. etc.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of the way he brought Todd Hunter up kind of makes me wonder, does he look up to Todd Hunter? Is that why he's so focused on how did he get there? And that could make some sense. But then there also could be you know, some fans have thought, maybe Rimmer had feelings for Todd Hunter, which also makes sense,
that, that
you
would- that
know.
that would kind of make sense. I think in Rimmer's case, it'd be kind of, how do I put this? Without getting too adult, I think it'd be kind of a kind of sort of power fantasy kind of thing. Uh, I think he would like the fact that Todd Hunter has authority over him, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because let's face it. I mean, it is established that Rimmer is obsessed with authority. In this scene, he gets a white admiral's uniform. Because he thinks he's going to his death. So at least he can go to his death dressed as an admiral, even if he never actually gets to be an admiral. So. Mhm.
Yep. Exactly.
Oh yeah, I'm just going to briefly say that I did enjoy Holly's Norweb joke.
Yeah. Holly was pretty absent in this episode, though,
Yeah,
when
I
it
mean,
comes down to it.
he just sort of crops up to play a joke on Lister, and then goes away again. I mean, it does sort of underline how bored out of his computer skull Holly clearly is.
Oh yeah. It makes you understand, exactly how and why he's senile.
Exactly, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, and also briefly, it does interest me that we see a sort of a slightly less, nice side to Lister here. Because he sort of, tricks Rimmer into revealing the gazpacho soup thing. But it doesn't really bother me, because I mean, Lister doesn't have to be the good one all the time. He's allowed to have less, nice moments.
There's that. It also kind of shows that Lister's a lot smarter than I think he gives himself credit for.
Yeah, I mean that is a theme that runs. I mean, I think is it yeah in a later episode. Oh yeah, the Inquisitor. His where he tells himself you've got brains that you've never used. I mean, and it really is obvious. Even from the start. Well, of course they originally intended to have Lister as a different character, but when they cast Craig Charles. They had to sort of, adapt to the actor, and it was obvious that the actor, was intelligent, and was playing the character as intelligent. So they adapted, and I think that was definitely a good choice.
It was. It was definitely a good choice.
Right. Okay. So we need to wrap up, but I was wondering, how would you rate this episode out of 10, both overall and for slashiness?
Overall, this one is a nice, solid 8. This honestly, to me, is the best episode in series 1. As great as the pilot is, to me, it comes in at number 2, because this one really shows the characters off a lot, and that does include the cat, given that this is almost the most we see of the cat, even in the previous episode, Waiting for God. You don't really learn much about the cat specifically as much as you learn about the cat people. But this one's starting to build up the cat, and so yeah, this is a good solid episode. For slashiness, this is also an 8, because as you started off, these two, they're like a couple that are breaking up because they're having a tiff, they're having a fight, and then they eventually get back together.
Right. Well, that is interesting, because I have my notes here, and I have also given the episode 8 out of 10, both for overall and for slashiness. That's an interesting coincidence that we're in such absolute agreement.
It'd be interesting, people listening to this, what their scores would be for these episodes. And it'd be fun to see if, interacting with the podcast, people also could give their ratings.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see what those numbers are.
Thank you very much for being a very entertaining guest. It was lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and that brings us to the end of this episode of Smeg and the Femmes. Thank you to my guest, and also thank you to Hologramet for technical help. I hope you enjoyed listening. If you'd like to give us feedback, you can do so on the posts on Tumblr or Discord, where I've linked this episode. And you can also email us at smegandthefemmes@gmail.com. So, next time we'll be starting Series 2 with the introduction of a certain mechanoid called Crichton. I hope you'll join us then, but for now, goodbye.